Hi everyone, and welcome to my painting of my little cow character named Moozle. So this painting is based off of a digital piece that I made not that long ago, and a lot of people really liked it. So I'm making kind of like a second part to it almost, you know, like kind of like a continuation of the story, almost in a sense. So I start off by taping off my board to make sure that none of the paint gets on this section, which is going to be the beam. I make sure to really crimp the sides, make sure that no paint gets underneath. I want a really clean line, right? I start off by applying a pretty thin layer of white paint just to kind of have a wet canvas to work with. And I start to squirt my paints on, have some blue, black, and red, and then I mix those together on my board. I like the effect that it gives where it's kind of darker and lighter in some areas. So that's why I did it like this. You can do it however you want. You can pre-mix the colors, you can do an acrylic drip pour, whatever you guys want for your background. I kind of want the main part of this entire painting to be the beam and the cow. So you can even add different colors. You can add green or pink or orange, do whatever you want to kind of get the effect that you're going after. So for me, I didn't really want to make the background super detailed because I really wanted the focus just to be the beam and Moozle. But it's up to you. You guys can do whatever you want for your background. You can add as many colors or shapes as you guys want. And here you see me kind of making these lines with my paintbrush, and you can't really see it because it's so sped up, but I'm making these tiny waves all across the background, and I do that because I like the texture that it gives the painting. I have a close-up that's coming up soon. So here's a close-up. So it's basically just a bunch of really tiny waves in the background, and I do that because I just kind of want the background to have an otherworldly feel to it almost. And it's time for peeling, but before I peel, I make sure to cut around the tape so that when I peel off the tape, it doesn't just bring up all that paint that I just put down. I of course waited for the paint to dry, but I'm saying that because the first time that I ever used tape with paint, I didn't cut around it, and when I started peeling the tape, it just brought up all of the paint with it, and it was so sad. It was so sad because I had just worked so hard on a beautiful piece. I peeled off the tape, and oh my god, all the paint was just coming off of the sides, and it was so sad. I was crying. So you can see the really crisp lines, and it just looks so beautiful with that white in the center, which we have to cover up again because I forgot to add the stars in the background. So now I'm wasting tape, I'm re-taping up the background, and this is where I learned from my mistakes. So next time I'll make sure to do all the steps I need to do before I even take that tape off. You know, that should be the last thing you do. So I'm taping off the board again, which is nice for you guys because you get to watch it being peeled again, and that's always really satisfying for me. I knew that I wanted to make the stars, but I just got the urge to make the actual color of the beam part. I got the jar, I started to mix a good amount of a light baby bluish gray color that I want for the beam. And I'm doing this in this order because I already had the color in mind, so I wanted to make sure that I had that color down before I started doing all the stars in the background. And as you can see, I'm kind of putting in colors as I go. I'm looking for like a really light bluish gray, and I'm holding up the little color to the background to make sure that it's the exact shade that I want it to be. I don't want it to be just like a baby blue color, right? I want it to be like a grayish baby blue. And later on, when I'm actually about to apply, you'll see me changing the color up a little bit. So I close the jar up, make sure it doesn't dry. I put in a drop of white paint and a little splash of water. I'd say it's like a 1-to-1 ratio probably, to make some really liquidy white paint. And I'm doing that to kind of give the stars a very sporadic and just like a nice look to them, right? I don't really want them to be like globs of paint. I want it to be like little flicks of white. Looking back at this moment, I realized that I should have covered up everything that was near my desk that was important. For example, like I had a monitor right by me, and keyboard and mouse, and I got paint all over that stuff because of all the little splatters. Good thing I dried it. Good thing I wiped it up before it dried. But that's just a note for you guys to make sure that you cover up anything that's important next to you, anything that's worth money that you don't want paint on. So peel time number 2. Just go ahead and peel off that little centerpiece. And as you can see, I added those 2 stars with those 2 globs, which I really like how that looks. I just took a stick and just kind of made the little shape of a star. So now I'm gonna tape off the sides, I believe, so that I have a really crisp beam going down the center to kind of keep that really clean line that I've been trying to keep this whole time. Here I'm testing the color before I start really painting it, because I want to make sure that it's exactly the shade that I want it to be. So I added some white and a little dot of black, so it's kind of a grayish blue instead of just like a baby blue once again. When you are retaping, just make sure that you get as close as possible to the original edge so that there's not like a double layer or any paint that is overlapping. In a second, to kind of give the beam some more dimension, I don't want it to be all like one boring shade, right? I want it to have some more life to it, some places that are lighter, some places that are darker, and you just kind of pick a color that you want. You can make this like green or blue or purple or black even, whatever you guys want. And I kind of decided that this one little layer of blue was kind of too boring, so I took some white and I added some lines and some little shine effects, I guess, to kind of give it some more life and dimension. I didn't want it to be just like a plain flat blue. I added the white to kind of give it more of a spacey feel, I guess. That's what I was going for. And I wait for that to dry, I peel off the tape, and now I start sketching my little cow character. Here is a close-up of the sketch, and I just make a really light sketch. I don't use a pencil that's too soft because I don't want the graphite to get everywhere. I just use like a really thin, I think this is an H pencil. I make the shapes that I want, I do the little spots, and I take the time to really make the character look exactly the way that I want her to look. I'm using a stay wet palette to put my paints on, and I highly recommend that because it keeps your paints wet for a very long time, and it makes sure that you can use these paints again and again. It's kind of it's like an airtight container, and on the bottom layer is a sponge that you kind of soak in water and then you put back into the container, and then it comes with a special palette paper that kind of lets the water slowly come up, not too much so that the paints are all watery, but it just makes it really, really perfect. I actually painted this about 2 weeks ago, and I just pulled out this palette yesterday, and all the paints were still just completely wet. They were still completely perfect to use. It was great. I highly recommend this palette. It's only $13. It comes with a bunch of the palette paper, and it's gonna save you money in the long run because you're not gonna need to waste as much paint, because acrylic paint dries very fast, and sometimes when you're painting, your paint just dries up and you need to keep adding more and more paint. So this is just a good way to keep your paints really nice and moist, so that you can keep using the same paint instead of just wasting a whole bunch of paint, which is you just wasting money. And also the palette papers themselves are reusable. You can just go ahead and wash them in the sink and just let them dry, and then you can just keep reusing the palette papers, which is really cool. And I'm just using a bunch of brushes that I bought on Amazon. I bought this really fine brush on Amazon for, I think it was like a pack of 4 for like $7. And I don't know if I mentioned this, but the Stay Wet palette is about $13 on Amazon. So I'm really taking my time with the coloring in of the cow, because I really want it to look really good, because I'm spending the time to do this painting, so I might as well put in all my time and energy into making it look the way that I want it to look, right? There's no point in just doing something not good just because you're trying to rush through it, right? So if you're doing a painting and you kind of start to get a little bit unmotivated, you should try to take a break, and then you should try to come back to it at a time where you feel more excited about it, so that you can actually do a really good job on it. The paints that I'm using today are the Liquitex Basics Acrylic paint. It's about $4.50 per tube, and I'm also using Golden Acrylics Titanium White, which is about $30 a bottle. I highly recommend you buying one good quality paint, especially white, like a good quality white. That way you can mix it into cheaper quality paints and it will improve the quality of the paint. And I got that tip from a YouTuber on here, 1000. And I tried that tip out because I was like, it's probably not really gonna do that much, but it really did make a difference in the quality of my cheaper paints. For this part, I really wanted to get the colors down. I didn't just want to pick a bunch of random colors, you know, like I wanted to pick the colors that were very complementary to each other, things that kind of made sense. I didn't really want to add too much water to my paint because I felt that I really wanted just like a really strong opaque white to make the little cow really stand out. So I used a very white and a very black so that it just really stood out and was very opaque. And once again, the reason that I'm taking such a long time on just doing the coloring in portion of this cow, like just coloring the cow took more time than the entire background of the beam put together, is because this is the thing that's gonna be the centerpiece. You know, this is the most important part of the painting. And I'm really trying to take my time here, and although I did make a couple mistakes, those are more so a learning opportunity for me for next time. So while we kind of just wait through this clip, what kind of art do you guys like to do? Do you guys like to paint? Do you guys like to draw? Do you guys like to sculpt? Do you like to make music? There's so many different types of art. I'm just kind of curious, what kind of art style do you guys like the most? Also, leave me a comment on whether or not you guys believe in life outside of Earth. So, as you guys will see in a little bit, right after I eat my little chocolate, as you guys see, this is me lining the cow now, and I was just so excited to get this piece done with. I started to speed up. I started to rush through the painting, you know. I wasn't really being as careful as I was the entire time, and I messed up on the lining around the snout. And instead of getting just like super upset about it, it's more so a lesson for me to kind of slow down on the lining, right? and instead of just getting super upset and starting over, I kind of did what I could to be happy with it. But now I know for next time, like, hey, I need to slow down with the final steps, because I know it's exciting, but it's like I spent a long time doing this entire painting. It doesn't really make sense for me to mess it up towards the very end. So right there, that wasn't the way that I wanted the snout to look, right there at the bottom. But it is what it is, and you gotta learn from your mistakes. I decided to add in a spaceship at the very end. So I sketched one out a little bit lower, but I kind of decided just to kind of go for it up in the corner. And I put in a lot of detail into the spaceship, a lot more than I kind of wanted to at first, because I kind of wanted the whole painting to be very simple, just like a cute little painting. But I added shading and lights and a beam to it and all that kind of stuff. But I really liked how it turned out. I think it just kind of puts the whole piece together and really complements the entire piece. So don't be afraid to add random things to your painting. You never know if it's going to make your entire painting even better than you would have even thought. And I taped up the sides of the spaceship to make the beam, and I made it a little bit darker than the beam up front because I wanted to show that it was kind of in the distance. And I used basically the same blue tone, but I just added more black to it and a little bit more white to kind of give it more of like a gray feel. And I really liked how the beam on this one actually turned out, and just the entire spaceship in general. I really liked how it turned out and looked. And then once again, I just added some shading to the beam, some dark parts and some light parts, so that it wasn't just one boring shade. So now I just do the final steps, which is signing my name and varnishing the painting. To varnish the painting, I use a satin varnish and a fan brush. I feel like the fan brush is the easiest and most efficient way to do it. I feel like it just gives it a very clear cover. Make sure to get every corner and every spot, and you can even do multiple layers of varnish depending on the look that you're going for. So finally, this is a finished painting. I hope you guys like it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and please leave a comment down below if you have any suggestions for any videos that you would like me to make, and keep your eye out for my next video. Thanks guys, see you later.